This is just to give you an update on my activities outside YouTube. Of course, I don't confine my activities just on YouTube. There are a range of social media platforms. I do have a goal, and I suppose I'm active on different social media platforms, perhaps in rotation and when the opportunity occurs. So, recently I have been trying to get friendly with the Christians. I am concerned about them because I think they have the wrong religion, and it's not just about them that they should worry about, but the rest of the world, because if Christians are in charge of a global empire, then if they go wrong, then a lot of people will suffer, not just the people of the West who identify as Christian, but those who are subject to their foreign policy. I have a few theological theories about why things are going wrong, and obviously I want to express them and discuss them. I don't treat my ideas as some kind of defective infant to be shielded from the scrutiny of passers-by. I actually want to, well, be scrutinised, be subject to scrutiny. I want people to challenge me. And when people are so afraid that they ban me just for saying what I'm saying, it just makes me think that I've won. I think that I alone, going up and down the channels of this Bridges of Meaning Discord server, have won all my engagements with these cowardly Christians. They couldn't explain to me how Christianity is not idolatry. They mostly posted nonsense, and I think I managed to make my points very clear. Possibly I made it too clear, and someone called Sam Adams, who just doesn't like me and is insufferably smug, removed me. He didn't even give me a reason. It's not like I was breaking the rules and saying, if you do that again, then you're out of here. I obviously wasn't breaking any rules. I was using language very precisely. I obviously wanted to discuss idolatry, and I was challenging them, all these Christians, about the Trinity, and they basically couldn't deal with, or they didn't address any of my questions. Let's put it like that. You might think I've made my point, I've won, and that's why they kicked me out. But that's not the long and short of it. Sam Adams, the administrator who kicked me out, recently announced on the Fudgerecci and Randos United stream that he's recently moved over to a Unitarian church. So of course I was interested in discussing it with him, and of course I tagged him, and he was apparently outraged that I would do such a thing. Why shouldn't I tag him? I wanted to attract his attention. you would have thought he'd appreciate the attention I was giving him for his move from Trinitarianism to Unitarianism. I mean, I didn't notice that the others were taking an interest. They kind of said, "Oh, so you've moved over to Unitarianism." I have attended one Unitarian church service in my life, and it's quite different to the services you go to in a Catholic or Anglican church. So it must have been an interesting experience for him. I just wanted to talk to him about it, and then he got on his high horse and got all hoity-toity with me, and didn't engage with any of the arguments at all. In fact, I thought the others, even though they disagreed with me, they were sort of enjoying the exchange. So it's very disappointing that, me on my own in a overwhelmingly majority Christian Discord server could not so quickly outstate my welcome after, not even more than a day. I was minding my P's and Q's. I wanted to discuss idolatry. I am concerned about these Christians because, if God exists, then they're guilty of it, and it's something they should consider. I think a lot of these Christians don't really care, to the extent that they think about their religion at all. It's only a kind of lifetime membership to their local church. They don't really think about an afterlife. They probably don't think the whole thing's true, but, churches are they can be beautiful buildings, so I guess if you are fortunate enough to have a church near you that's pretty, you'd like to go to it rather than some crummy, cheap building that I'm afraid most mosques are. They're just not architecturally distinctive or aesthetic. So I can understand that for quite utterly trivial and snobbish reasons, you might prefer to do your religious worship at a nice stone building in your pretty chocolate box English village. So I rather suspect these middle-class people as being guilty of snobbery. They don't really care about their immortal souls. They only want to lord it over the plebs during their lifetimes. They're probably atheists. They don't believe that God exists to punish them in this life or the next. But they're concerned about the way their country is going and the way their government governs their country. But they gather together online to discuss these things, but they don't really get very far because, they don't like each other, they don't trust each other, they can't say what they really mean, so what they say is full of jargon, neologisms, as a display of their neurosis, because they can't really say what they mean. I have to say that although I had a low opinion of the Whig Nats, they're actually much better mentally. I mean, I don't agree with them, but at least what they say makes sense. It's like, if they don't like Jews, they're going to go on about Jews and Muslims and whoever they dislike, but at least there's something rational about it. But these middle-class people with their degrees in whatever, they never really discuss anything because they're so terrified of being exposed for, being Trump supporters or something. Utterly terrified. But anyway, they kind of gather in obscure little corners of the internet to I guess, commune with each other and try to seek solace with each other. And so I wanted to put it to them that they might be guilty of idolatry, and what is the authority for their proposition that Jesus is God. And I had no coherent answer. And the thing is, I didn't quite get round to telling them what the harm of idolatry was before I was kicked off by this Sam Adams. And I think it's quite important. I don't think the rabbis really explain why idolatry is bad. Not in a kind of, oh, it's bad because God forbade it and you mustn't do it if you don't want to go to hell. But you know, in practical, this life consequences. So this is something I'd like to be able to do. And I think Sam Adams has deprived his fellow Christians of my, I would say, very meaningful pronouncements on it. And this I will leave for another time. Except to say, really, that idolatry means, means being an idolater, and being an idolater means that you are neither Jewish nor Muslim, which means that you have deprived yourself of the guidance of your religious scripture, and this means you will suffer the consequences of so doing. Now, the Jews already know not to be idolaters, and so do Muslims. It's the other religions that don't really know it. I know Buddhism is supposed to be an atheist religion, but it's controversial, apparently. I mean, so somebody, Khalid Safir was saying that really Buddhists do believe in God, but every time I look it up, it's called an atheist philosophy. Buddhists don't particularly talk about the attributes of God. They talk about reincarnation, and the assumption is that you're going to be reincarnated into a lower form of life where you will suffer if you're bad in this life. But I don't think it's scary enough for Buddhists, which is why they are, rather less. I was going to say virtuous. Than believing Jews and believing Muslims, because there aren't, quite so many rules in Buddhism. I guess I can't prove it other than to say that empires that are supported by the Abrahamic religions tend to do better. But then we're going to be pointing out China, which is an atheist empire run on socialism with Chinese characteristics. I suppose China is a kind of exception because it doesn't identify itself with any religion, and has the policy of statecraft. They have a very long established tradition of trying to rule China properly, and quite often they fail and they get invaded and are governed by foreigners. But anyway, even as they are governed by foreigners, there's this idea that they should run their empire properly and be using the latest methods to do so, and have political scientists such as Confucius promoting Confucianism, and the other lot promoting legalism. But anyway, as we know, China has been through bad times, and they are still officially without a religion. But I think the way they chose Marxism is I think an expression of their statecraft too, because when the Qing dynasty fell in 1911, they must have thought, well, what are we going to do? What shall we, what kind of political system shall we adopt? We've given up our monarchy. We must find another way of doing it. But anyway, their one-party system came from the Soviet Union. They have the same terms, Standing Committee, Politburo, Standing Committee, Central Committee, all these Soviet origin hierarchies. Where was I? So I'm saying basically the Eastern religions who don't believe in an omniscient Abrahamic God who forbade idolatry are somehow less organised than the adherents of the Abrahamic religions. So I would say that believing Christians would behave better, because they would believe that God would know their hearts and minds, and they better watch themselves or else get punished. That was when they literally believed that God exists to punish them in this life and the next. But in the last 50 years they have thrown that out. And this explains the problem that they have. So I consider myself to be a political scientist and a moral philosopher, able to explain these things, and obviously it's a little disappointing when people don't want to engage on these topics, people like Sam Adams, who don't really want me to say what I say because for some reason it offends him. Perhaps he just won't take it from me because he's such a smug man. Insufferably smug, you might even say. So people with big egos, like Sam, all find it difficult to take any truth from anyone whom he dislikes. He considers himself to be more intelligent than all the others. You can tell just by looking at him. He has a very high opinion of himself. You would have thought, a clever person would be more prepared to take on all challenges, but Sam is not that sort of person. Very disappointingly. Perhaps he's intellectually dishonest, or just doesn't really want to talk to people whom he regards as his inferiors. But he's in the position of being a gatekeeper, and there are so many gatekeepers around who think they can abuse their power in the way that he does, because, I didn't break any rules. It wasn't as if they said, well, if you do this thing again, Claire, then you have to leave. We will remove you. He just removed me without really explaining why. After all, I was in a Christian Discord server. There were channels devoted to the sort of thing I wanted to discuss, Christianity, Islam, Judaism. There's a channel called that. But for some reason I wasn't able to talk about that. and I don't know who the owner is and what's going to be done. But I thought I was making progress in making the point that Christianity is idolatry, and Christians should consider what is to be done if Christianity is indeed idolatry. Now, moving on to the next subject. It is Amalek. Now, Amalek is a tribe Jews are religiously obliged to exterminate. Actually, actively called upon to do so. And as you can imagine, Jews don't want to do that sort of thing. It's, well, I'm sure you wouldn't either, because, well, it's a terrible responsibility and you're going to get into trouble, be charged with murder if you attempted to do anything like that. But I think, as somebody, I think all Jews should have a think about it if they take these things seriously. Rabbis in particular, Orthodox rabbis especially. Because if God made all these rules and gave all these commands, and we just have to assume that we're going to get punished if we don't, if we disobey. And I think Jews already know they're in a lot of trouble, because half of them are secular Jews, which means half of them are heretics, and if Jews were taking their religion seriously, the heretical part of Jewry would have to be executed by the non-heretical Jews. So they're in trouble. And I thought, what is a Jew to do? You know, there are all these Amaleks that are supposed to be still around, or are they still around? I know some rabbi said, well, they have become extinct. Surely they have become extinct, so we don't have to trouble ourselves about exterminating them. So you could comfort yourself if you're Jewish, thinking it's all been done, no need to worry about Amalek. Or you could speculate on how you might look for them if you were, maybe put on a mission impossible perhaps, but anyway, you'd have to think of how you are to go about identifying them. And I believe I have a system which, if adopted by Jews, assist them in this. In their duty, their task of exterminating Amalek. And it is to work out, using the no-hide laws, which religion, which of the 5 world religions it would be, because if Amalek are still around, they must have a religion, mustn't they? I mean, you can't not have a religion and still be around. They have to be identifiable. And I'm saying, well, obviously, if you're going to rank the 4 Gentile religions, then you would you would be able to work out which religion Amalek might be an adherent of if he still exists. So they would logically and necessarily be having the religion that is the least no-hide, and that's why and you'll know who they are. And I'm saying, yes, they would be Christians, because my ranking of the four Gentile religions is this: Islam being the most no-hide, Buddhism being less no-hide, Hinduism even less so because of its obvious idolatry, and finally Christianity because it's idolatry and blasphemy. So I am speculating that Christians would be the Amalek. And obviously it's going to be difficult for Jews. It's really, well, it's a burden more than any Jewish soul can bear. I mean, after all, there's so many Christians and so few Jews. How is a Jew to exterminate Amalek, even if it were legal? They can't go to war to them. They can't declare war on Amalek because, well, Jews are only, 0.1% of the global population. Well, you just can't do it, can you? And I'm suggesting a way for them to do it, which is to challenge them. Challenge Christians about whether their religion is idolatry and blasphemy, and that's easy to do. It's legal, it's peaceful. Jews could ally with Muslims to do that if they're still afraid of Christians. And I'm saying they don't need to be afraid of Christians because, well, you're only Christian if you've been confirmed, and very, very, very few people, even if they identify as cultural Christians, are in fact Christian if they haven't been confirmed. So I think the numbers would be very, very small indeed, and not even that much to worry about. But I don't think you should worry about these ordinary Christians, Jews and Muslims, if they want to quote exterminate unquote Amalek. Just need to go to the. Oh, they don't even need to go anywhere. They can just post on Twitter and tag the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury, asking them how and why Christianity is not idolatry, and how and why Jesus is God. And that will make the point very nicely. Obviously a lot of them have to do it, as many of them have to do it in order to make it happen, to make both the Pope and the Archbishop aware that their cover is blown. It is now generally known that Christianity is idolatry, and Jews and Muslims have lost their fear of their Christian overlords because fear should give them courage, really. Fear of the outbreak of World War III, which these Christians are bent on causing. It is something to concern ourselves about if we're Western, if we live in Europe especially. We're not getting much sense from the media. A lot of people are unhappy. Jews and Muslims in the West can do something for the country that they have come and settled in by doing what the cowardly, unprincipled, politically and morally inert Westerner who doesn't have a religion is too afraid to do, which is to do as I suggest, which is to ask the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury how and why Christianity is not idolatry, and if they say it's not idolatry, if Jesus is God, then ask them how Jesus is God. Ask them where they get the authority for the proposition that Jesus is God. Where did it come from? And so this goes back to the first subject of this stream, which is the Bridges of Meaning Discord server, where these Christians just wouldn't engage with me, and Sam Adams removed me before I could say clearly what the harm of idolatry is. So what is the harm of idolatry? The harm of idolatry is the opportunity cost of being rightly guided by the Quran. And I could have developed on this theme more if I had been allowed to stay, but I've been removed. And so I think those who are there might like to ask a few questions. Those whose names are associated with it: Paul van der Clay, John Vervaeke, Jordan Peterson. They might want to ask themselves about whether Christianity is idolatry, and whether there's going to be any trouble if it is, from the man upstairs, if he doesn't think he's an executed blasphemer. And they could ask themselves if they're cursed by God for their idolatry that they refuse to repent of, and maybe ask Sam Adams why he removed me, because really we're on the same side, aren't we? We're distancing ourselves from idolatry. Sam announced that from a Trinitarian Christian he has moved over to Unitarian Christianity, so he should be able to discuss these things with me in an open way, but he chose not to, so I don't really know what his problem is, well, other than the fact that he's very smug, and he obviously hates me, and he's banned some other people without giving any reasons. I wonder if it's because, these Christians just feel uncomfortable about having the Trinity discussed. Well, obviously it's difficult if what it means is that you've been wrong all your life, and worse than that, your parents have been wrong all their lives, and that your ancestors have been wrong, going back God knows how many generations. Well, I make it 102 generations of idolaters. So there is a certain element of denial. I think perhaps Sam Adams is in denial, and, I guess he wants to take his own sweet time about coming to terms with the fact that Trinitarianism is idolatry, and that moving over from Trinitarianism to Unitarianism might be a way out for him. But I don't think so, not really, because Unitarianism is not a powerful church. It has odd rituals and is very globo-homo. So even though its doctrine is technically correct, they don't think Jesus is in any way divine. He's just a prophet of God. And you think, yes, that's fair enough, and But then it moves you closer to Islam, and I suppose the proximity to Islam is what Sam Adams cannot bear. It's not. I don't think it's enough to become a Unitarian Christian if you have children, because I don't think Unitarianism provides anybody with a sufficient. With sufficient moral guidance, particularly if you have children. So I think that might be a problem there. And also, doctrinally, Unitarian Christians have not quite decided whether the virgin birth is true or not. They haven't even agreed a position on it yet. But Islam has. The Quran has actually said that the virgin birth is okay, that they accept it. I suspect saying this will make Sam Adams even angrier at me. But these things have to be said. I mean, he is... technically, he and I should be on the same side. I mean, he is moving towards belief in a Unitarian God. He has moved away from worshipping Jesus, and perhaps he has me to thank for it, but he chose to show his hatred for me. Why would he do such a thing? Perhaps it's because he's so insufferably smug and doesn't like to acknowledge that, my part in making him move on over to Unitarianism. But Sam is perhaps just a drop in the ocean of the kind of unhelpful attitude that people take when they are corrected. They become spiteful, petty, unhelpful, deliberately obstructive, even at the expense of their fellow Americans. So if Christians are Amalek, and there's a tweet that I read today that suggests that some rabbis think so. What is a Jew to do? I'm saying they should talk about it. They should talk about it openly to each other on social media and with Muslims, what is to be done about it, if it is true that Christians are Amalek. I mean, is it possible that one can be Amalek without realising it? And I'm saying, of course. If nobody tells you you are Amalek, then, well, why would you know? Well, technically, Christians, having appropriated the Tanakh into their Bible, the Old Testament into their Bible, they would know about Amalek, the religious obligation of Jews to exterminate Amalek. So technically they should know about it, but there are, as you know, very few confirmed Christians, and perhaps even the confirmed Christians do not have a good knowledge of the Bible at all. But anyway, for Jews, they know what they're supposed to do because I think it's part of the 613 laws of Judaism that they are commanded to do. So they would know all about it, and I suppose it must trouble them that they're not sure if they have, in fact, carried this commandment out. 613 laws. Amalek. Let me see if that is... Yep, it's one of the 613 laws. And one of them is, indeed, to exterminate Amalek. I know the Jews don't like talking about it. But there it is. We should really ask them. Well, not any Jew, because most Jews are probably as ignorant as most ordinary Christians. So if it feels like the world is about to end, or some terrible thing is going to happen, such as World War III, people should consider these questions a little bit more, and particularly in Discord servers where people do want to talk about these things, and have been removed by people like Sam Adams. They're doing a great disservice to their own people, to their fellow Christians, and also fellow Americans. So I hope Sam Adams will reconsider, or whoever is above him will have a word with him, so that I will be invited back to finish saying what I'm saying about the harm of idolatry and causing Westerners to be unable to solve their problems or even think them through properly. So I see John Williams has popped up saying, well, what have I said is untrue? I'm saying ordinary Jews probably do not know their Torah that well. Certainly not Reformed Jews. There's no way of measuring biblical ignorance, is there? I suppose if you wanted to get them all together, you would have to get all the confirmed Christians together and then test the knowledge and their knowledge. A 3-hour examination, multiple choice test, and then yes, and round up the Jews and Muslims and test them on their knowledge of the Tanakh and knowledge of the Quran, and then I guess you average the marks out. That would be the way of doing it. So John Williams, why would you say what I say is untrue? It's not obviously untrue. So back to the question of idolatry and Amalek. Problem of idolatry, the harm it does is that it's obviously a distraction, a waste of time, waste of energy, worshipping idols, when really you should be internalizing the principles of your divine revelation, which is what Jews and Muslims are supposed to do. I don't think most of them do it properly, if at all, but maybe they pick up a few things here and there. And once you internalize all these rules, then you will be more likely to act correctly. Though I do have a problem with some rabbis who just won't do the right thing. They won't rank the 4 Gentile religions because, well, they hate Muslims. They don't want to be seen to be promoting the religion of the people they hate. But then they are not taking seriously their religious duty to promote, to teach the Noahide laws and discourage idolatry and blasphemy. And what is the harm of idolatry? Well, it is, you waste time and you deprive yourself of the opportunity of being rightly guided by the Quran. But what about hidden idolatry? Well, hidden idolatry is just denialism. It just means you're being unprincipled. So if believing Jews and believing Muslims won't do the logical thing, won't do what their divine revelation, what their scripture commands them to do, and give irrelevant and irrational reasons, then they are clearly guilty of hidden idolatry. And I think if most people... Okay, just imagine all the world were already Muslim, would they still be guilty of hidden idolatry? Yes, yes they would. But others around them would know what the principles of the Quran are, and then they could accuse each other of hidden idolatry, and that would be better than accusing each other of, being racist and fascist and, sexist and all the silly terms that we now have to label each other and bring each other's status down to, well, they are words, that they are derogatory words to lower the status of the people we accuse them of. So, in summary, I am saying that if we all rearrange the furniture of in our heads, and believed in the Abrahamic God, who knows everything, then the solution would become clear. It would just be so obvious what we should be doing now. What should we be doing now? We should obviously be pointing out the idolatry of Christianity and its blasphemy, and the fact that it is the least no-hide of all these religions, and if Amalek was still in existence, he would still be in existence because he followed a religion, and I'm saying he would be Christian because it's a worse religion according to the no-hide laws. And if you don't believe me, ask a rabbi. If the rabbi won't answer honestly, he's probably guilty of hidden idolatry. You see, that's how you get them. And because rabbis won't repent of their hidden idolatry, but they're not going to do what I asked them to do, which is to rank the four Gentile religions, ranking Islam the most and Christianity the least no-hide, and that's why the world is in so much trouble, that we're going to be punished with the outbreak of World War III, and it cannot be blamed on, well, it can be blamed on Christians, Jews and Muslims, who are all guilty of idolatry and refuse to do the right thing because they don't really believe. So I hope I've explained myself reasonably well, but I'll try again if I haven't another time. Thank you all for your attention. I see another comment from John Williams. He says, Christianity is more no-hide than Hinduism. How so? Do Hindus worship an executed blasphemer? They don't, do they? Jesus was an executed blasphemer. Hindus don't go out of their way to make stories up to blaspheme God. I mean, don't you know that Jesus was executed for blasphemy, John Williams? As far as you know, do Hindus worship any executed blasphemers? Let's hear it from you, John Williams. John Williams says, Jesus was not a blasphemer. Well, The Sanhedrin convicted him of blasphemy, didn't they? Even I know that. Why do you think Jesus was crucified? Let's hear it, John Williams. I can take my time. It's in the book of Mark that Jesus was convicted of blasphemy by the Sanhedrin. Wasn't it, John Williams? You can't deny that. It's part of the Christian narrative. You must know about Pontius Pilate. I'll give you another minute if if you can't answer these questions. How do you know he's God? John Williams says, he didn't blaspheme because he is God. False accusation. Well, how do you know he's God? Where did you hear it? Who says he's God? So John Williams says, because he is immortal and gives life to others, well, how did he give life to others? And how do you know he's immortal? Because you were told this. And where were you told this? What is a document? The Bible tells me so, John Williams says. Well, chapter and verse, where does it say that Jesus is immortal? And who wrote the Bible? Who wrote the New Testament? When was it written? John Williams says, and so it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being, the last Adam became a living, giving spirit. Well, it doesn't mean anything other than God created man, and Adam was the first man. from John Williams is 2 Timothy 1:10 verse concepts, but now has been revealed by the appearing of our Saviour Christ Jesus, who abolished death and brought life and immortality too. Well, Timothy was it written by Timmy? Who wrote the book of Timothy? You see, it is also confusing. Oh, it's 2 Timothy. The authorship of 1 Timothy was traditionally attributed to Apostle Paul, although in pre-Nicene Christianity this attribution was often in dispute. He is named as the author. Okay, so it's in dispute. John Williams continues to post extracts from the Bible. Hebrews 2:14, therefore, since children share in the flesh and blood, and he himself likewise also partook of the same, that through death he might render powerless him who had the power of death. It's just complete claptrap, isn't it? Anybody can write anything. Okay, so John really hasn't got that much to say. The provenance of the New Testament is dubious. It hasn't got unity of authorship. And, well, who are these people anyway? I mean, they're nobody special, really. Not Jesus. Not even claim to be God. So it's all nonsense. Anyway, nothing you have quoted in the chat says anything about Jesus being God. Doesn't say that. Pseudo-Pauline book. What is Pseudo-Pauline? Which book are you calling Pseudo-Pauline? Same with the Old Testament. What is the same as the Old Testament? Well, see, it's very difficult to know what you're trying to say when you don't post in complete sentences. Okay, I don't, so you can post a whole bunch of verses, but they don't say what you claim it to say. It doesn't say that Jesus is the co-equal of the God of Israel, who is also Allah. It doesn't say anything about the Trinity. Anything more, John Williams? So you really have no authority for the proposition that Jesus is God? None whatsoever, other than the verses that you posted, which doesn't really say anything about Jesus being God and the co-equal of God. All right. Well, thank you for coming by. Thank you for displaying your lack of sound argument to assert the claim that Jesus is God. Thank you for coming. Oh, another verse. Philippians 2:6, who being in the form of God thought not robbery to be equal with God. It's just nonsense. You won't be able to find anything. It's all lies.